Hey friends, hello and welcome back to Learn with Lakshman Dharmaraj. In this video, we are going to talk about a poem by John Keats. The title of the poem is Bright Star. Before we begin to speak about the poem, I'd like to read out some information about John Keats. John Keats was born in 1795 and died in 1821. He lost his parents at early age, that means when he was a child. Despite being qualified in medicine, he never practiced medicine and chose to write poetry. He devoted himself completely to poetry. His first volume of poems was published in 1817, but it attracted very little attention. In 1818, he published his long and ambitious poem, Endymion, which was not much appreciated, but he was encouraged by his writer friends like William Hazlitt and others. The time between 1818 and 1819 was the most fertile period of his life. In the same period, he fell in love with Fanny, his bright star, and composed his 6 famous odes and such great narrative poems as Isabella, the Pot of Basil, the Eve of Saint Agnes, Hyperion, Lamia, and La Belle Dame Sans Mercy. Even then, his work was not appreciated by the critics of that time. In 1820, he suffered from tuberculosis and went to Italy in hope for recovery, but died in Rome on February 23, 1821. In the later part of the 19th century, Keats received the acclaim that he deserved. Writers like Alfred Lord Tennyson and Algernon Charles Swinburne praised him as one of the best poets of the time. In today's time also, Keats remains one of the best loved of all the English poets. He is actually a later romantic poet. Now, let us begin to talk about the poem Bright Star. Bright Star is the title of the poem, and the poem reads, Bright star, would I was steadfast as thou art, not in lone splendor hung aloft the night, and watching with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient, sleepless Eramite, the moving waters at the priest-like task of pure ablution from earth's human shores, or gazing on the new soft-fallen mask of snow upon the mountains and moors. No, yet still steadfast and still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to feel forever its soft fall and swell, awake forever in sweet unrest, still to hear her tender taken breath, and to live ever, or else swoon to death. This is the end of the poem. Now let's talk about a few keywords in the poem. Some of the keywords in the poem are, the first is bright star. What is bright star? Bright star is also called the pole star or the north star or Polaris. It is called Dhruva Tara, Dhruva star in India. This is the only star that remains motionless in the sky while all other stars appear to change their position. Therefore, the North Star has been used for navigation by voyagers. There is another word called steadfast. The meaning of the word steadfast is firm, immovable, stable, or fixed. The meaning of the word splendor is brightness or magnificence. If I were steadfast as thou art, this is the first line. If I were steadfast as thou art means I wish I could be firm as you are. The word thou in poetry means you and art means are. Lone, L-O-N-E, lone means lonely. Aloft, aloft means in the air. Eternal means forever, undying, unending, lasting, everlasting. Lids are eyelids. Watching with eternal lids apart means watching with wide open eyes forever. The word Eramite means hermit. Nature's patient, sleepless Eramite means the patient hermit of the nature. That means pole star is compared to the hermit. Ablution means ritual of cleansing or cleaning of sins. Earth human shores means the shores of the world. It is compared with the tides of sea cleansing the shores. There is a word called masque, M-A-S-Q-U-E, which is actually mask, M-A-S-K. Then there is a word called moors. Moors means an open area of hill covered with rough grass. That is the moor. Soft fallen mask of snow upon mountain moors is a line. Soft fallen mask of snow upon mountain moors. That is the area of mountains and hills covered by soft snowfall. There is a layer of snow on the mountains and moors. Priest-like task is again a line, a phrase used by the poet. The meaning of the phrase priest-like task is like the task done by the priest. Priest is a religious authority. New soft fallen mask of snow is another line. It means softly covered by snow. These were some of the difficult words that I wanted to talk about. Now we'll straight away begin with the poem. So let's start. The first line or the first stanza itself reads this as, Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, not in lone splendor hung aloft the night, and watching with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient, sleepless Eramite. See, bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art. When poet is saying, bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, poet is talking to the bright star as if it were a person. Addressing an object or an abstract idea as a human being in poetry is called personification. Personification is a figure of speech. Bright star is personified here. How is it personified? Bright star is considered to be a human being and human qualities are attributed to the bright star. Addressing an object directly in the poem is also a figure of speech and it is called apostrophe. Here, poet wishes that if he were steadfast. What is poet doing here? He is using two figures of speech. The first is personification, where he is addressing bright star as human being, and the second is apostrophe because he is directly addressing the bright star. He is calling bright star, thou art. If I were steadfast as thou art steadfast. I'm not steadfast like you. That's what he's trying to do. So these are two figures of speech we need to understand. One is personification, where abstract ideas are personified given the qualities of the human beings, and the other is apostrophe, where people are directly, objects are directly addressed. Okay. Now here poet wishes that he were as steadfast. Steadfast means firm, immovable. If he were as steadfast or immovable as the star is. This is the only star, bright, that means bright star. Bright star is pole star, or Polaris, or Dhruva star. This is the only star that remains motionless in the sky, while all other stars appear to be changing their position. And as we have talked earlier, the North Star has been used for navigation by voyagers since times immemorial. Let us look at the second line. Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, if I had been steadfast like you. But how? Not in lone splendor hang aloft the night. Not in lone splendor hang aloft the night. Not in lone splendor. Lone, lonely. Of course, the bright star is in the splendor, right? There is splendor around it. It looks magnificent. So magnificence is there. But poet doesn't want to be steadfast as the bright star, as the lonely bright star. It is magnificent, but it is lonely. So poet doesn't wish to be lonely. Therefore he says, not in lone splendor. Where is this lone splendor? Hung aloft the night. Aloft in the air. Hung in the air during the night. If you look at the bright star, you can see that it is hung aloft during the night. And poet doesn't wish to be in the lone splendor. Poet doesn't wish to be lonely. But not in lonely magnificence hanging in the air during the night. In simple words, the bright star appears splendid and hanging in the sky during the night. Poet does not want to be alone and steadfast like this. Look at the next line, and watching with eternal lids apart. And watching with eternal lids apart. Now look at the word lids. Lids means eyelids. Okay. Watching with eternal lids apart. Now these lids are not eternal. Okay. Watching with eternal lids apart. Apart away from each other. And watching with eyelids held away from each other forever. Eternal means forever. They are held away from each other forever. Now we can see the use of figure of speech called transferred epithet in this line. An epithet in simple words can be called an adjective. A transferred epithet is an epithet attached to one word but semantically goes with the other word. An epithet attached to one word but semantically goes with the other word. Epithet that gets transferred is called transferred epithet. Therefore, we call it transferred epithet. Look at the line, eternal lids apart. The word eternal looks like an epithet for lids, right? But actually, it means lids apart eternally. It goes with the word apart naturally rather than with the word eternal. Not with the word eternal, not with the word lids, but with the word apart. Thus, the line can be understood as the star watches things and keeps its eyelids open eternally forever. Thus, the line can be understood as the star watches things and keep its eyelids open eternally forever. Eternally means forever. Eternally or forever. Okay. Now, let us read these three lines together. Not in lone splendor hung aloft the night and watching with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient, sleepless Eramite. How now this bright star is compared with nature's patient, sleepless Eramite. Try to understand. The word Eramite means hermit. The word Eramite means hermit. Hermits are the people who sit on the mountain top. They are detached people. They do not care about what is going on in the world and all other things. Okay, so hermits are generally patient. They stay away from the society. They are detached from the world that we know. The pole star, according to the poet, is steadfast in lonely splendor and keeps watching continuously like the hermit of the nature who never sleeps. Pole star is compared with the hermit of the nature that never sleeps. Here is again another figure of speech used. The figure of speech simile is used here. Simile is comparison between two objects with the help of the words like, as like as, etc. Here, the pole star is being compared with hermit with the help of the word like. Therefore, we can say that the figure of speech simile is used here. This is the end of the first quatrain. Quatrain means a stanza of 4 lines. In English sonnets, there are 3 quatrains and a concluding couplet. This is very much similar to the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet. The second quatrain continues the idea in the first quatrain. The moving waters at their priest-like task. Like the hermit of nature, the pole star keeps on watching the moving waters. Like the hermit of nature, pole star keeps on watching moving waters, performing a priest-like task. What is this priest-like task, and who's performing this priest-like task? Moving waters are performing the priest-like task. And what is this priest-like task? This priest-like task is the task of pure ablution from earth's human shores. Pure ablution from earth's human shores. The priest-like task of moving waters is a task of pure ablution. Ablution, purification, cleansing of sins. The priest-like task of the moving waters is the task of pure ablution, which is performed. Where is it performed? Which is performed round earth's shores. Which is performed round earth's shores, that is on the shore of the earth. Human shores, in fact, earth's human shores. Round earth's human shores, I mean, it is compared with the seashores cleansed by the tides. This is one thing. Or gazing on the new soft fallen mask. Or gazing on the new soft fallen mask. The idea still continues. Like the hermit of nature, the pole star keeps on watching the moving waters, performing a priest-like task. Or keeps on gazing on. Keeps on looking continuously on. On what? Keeps on gazing on new soft fallen mask. New soft fallen mask of what? New soft fallen mask of snow upon the mountains and moors. Keeps continuously looking at the covered. What is being covered here? Mountains are covered. Moors are covered. And what has it covered by? It is covered by the soft fallen snow. And this pole star, like the hermit of nature, keeps on looking at these things. That is what poet tries to say. And I don't want to be like this. Try to understand this. Poet is trying to say that I want to be steadfast as the pole star, but I don't want to be the lonely, like the lonely person, as you are lonely, like a hermit who keeps on watching at the things from a distant place. I don't want to be like that. That is actually the idea communicated here. Okay. Keeps on gazing on new soft fallen mask of snow upon the mountains and moors. In simple language, it keeps on looking continuously at the snow-covered mountain or the grassy land. Moor is grassy land. In simple words, moor is grassy land. Now, let us come to the next line, because here, eighth line ends, right? Now, eighth means octave. There are two quatrains. First and second, that forms an octave of this poem. So we are at the end of the two quatrains, and now we are going to talk about the third quatrain. Not yet, still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast. After having said all these things means after having said what he does not want, the poet tells that he still wants to be steadfast and unchangeable. He wants to be steadfast and unchangeable, but not like the pole star. I mean, he wants to be steadfast and unchangeable like the pole star, but not lonely as the pole star is. So what does he say? After having said what he does not want, the poet tells that he still wants to be steadfast and unchangeable, but unlike the pole star, pillowed upon his fair love's ripening breast. Where does he want to be steadfast? He wants to be steadfast, pillowed upon his fair love's ripening breast, on the ripening breast of his beloved. Poet wants to be steadfast, but resting his head on the breast of his beloved. He wants to have his head on the breast of his beloved. He uses the word pillowed here, pillowed, which suggests that he wants to use his beloved's breast as the pillow. And the use of word ripening also suggests that his beloved is not yet a fully grown woman. She is still in the process of being complete woman biologically. We need to understand. Poet wants to be steadfast, but not like the hermit, pole star, who's like hermit, Poet doesn't want to be like that. Then what does poet want to be? Poet want to be steadfast. But where does he want to be steadfast? He want to be steadfast, resting his head upon the breast of his beloved. Still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon the fair love's ripening breast, to feel forever its fall and swell. And why does he want to be there, resting his head on the breast of his beloved? Poet wants to feel the soft swell and fall of his beloved's breast. Breathing makes breasts swell and fall, swelling and falling. If his beloved is sleeping, then, and if she is breathing, what will happen? Right, this is swelling and falling, and if poet is keeping his head on the breast of his beloved, he'll feel the swell and fall of the breast. That is what he is trying to say. The poet wants to feel soft swell and fall of his beloved's breast. Breathing makes breast swell and fall. Poet wishes to have his head on the breast of his beloved. Also wants to feel the swell of this fall and swell forever. Forever. He doesn't want it to stop. He doesn't want to sleep. Poet doesn't want to sleep. He wants to remain awake forever, feeling the soft touch of his beloved's breath. In the concluding couplet, poet says, still, still to hear her tender taken breath, and so live ever, or else swoon to death. I'll read the concluding couplet again. Still, still to hear her tender taken breath, and so live ever, or else swoon to death. Here, poet wants to be awaked in soft unrest, but he wants to be still like the pole star in order to hear the softly taken breath of his beloved. His beloved breathes, and he wants to feel this breath, soft breath of his beloved. He wants to live forever in this state. Resting his head on the breast of his beloved, he wants to live forever. He doesn't want to sleep. And if this is not possible, poet wants to fall unconscious and die, or else swoon to death. That means I'll fall unconscious and submit to the death. I want to die. This is what the poem is about. Let's talk about the structure of this poem. This poem structurally is a sonnet. Why is it a structurally sonnet? Because it has 14 lines, specifically 14 lines. A poem of 14 lines is called sonnet. We know that. If there are 14 lines in a poem, it is called a sonnet. This poem is an example of Shakespearean sonnet or English sonnet. English sonnet is also called Shakespearean sonnet. There is another title for English sonnet, and that is called Shakespearean sonnet. This sonnet is also called Shakespearean sonnet, or we can say that this sonnet is also an example of Shakespearean sonnet because it has 3 quatrains and a couplet, and its rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and G, G. And this is the rhyme scheme of Shakespearean sonnet or the English sonnet. There are few elements in this sonnet which also make it a Petrarchan sonnet or Italian sonnet. Petrarchan sonnet is also known as Italian sonnet. So there are a few elements of Italian sonnet or Petrarchan sonnet in it. If you look at the poem, there is a caesura at the end of 8th line, and there is volta at the beginning of the 9th line. You can see caesura and volta are the characteristic features of Petrarchan sonnet or the Italian sonnet. This we need to understand. Okay, the idea that begins in the first line continues to the 8th line. You can see that idea begins that poet wants to be steadfast as the bright star, but he doesn't want to be lonely like a hermit. Lonely as a pole star is compared to the hermit, and poet doesn't want to be lonely steadfast. Poet wants to be steadfast with his beloved. There is a sharp turn in the 9th line where poet begins to speak about things he wants. In the first 8 lines, he speaks about things he doesn't want, and from the 9th line, he begins to speak about things he wants. Okay, so this is the thing we need to understand. However, unlike Shakespearean sonnet, the concluding couplet continues the idea of earlier quatrain. It's not separated from rest of the quatrains, rest of the poems. So there it is different from the Shakespearean sonnet. Thus in rhyme it is an English sonnet, and in structure it is an Italian sonnet. We can say that in rhyme it is an English sonnet, and in structure it is an Italian sonnet. It can be called the combination of English and Italian sonnet. Speaking about the meter, the poem seems to have a specific meter. And what is this specific meter? This meter is pentameter. Why? Because there are 10 syllables in each of the lines of this poem. And if there are 10 syllables in each of the lines of this poem, that means there are 5 meters. And 5 meters, that becomes pentameter. So the pattern is pentameter. Try to understand. 2 syllables form 1 meter. Therefore, there are 5 meters in each line of this poem. This is what you need to understand. But it's not either iambic, trochaic, dactylic, anapaestic specifically. This pentameter is not specifically iambic or dactylic or anapaestic or trochaic, because it is a combination of different types of pentameters. Therefore, it is not specific, and that kind of irregularity is there. Therefore, it can be called an example of mixed pentameter. Now, let us try to understand the rhythm in the poem. If it is a pentameter and there is some sort of pentameter, we have to understand the rhythm in the poem, and rhythm can be understood by reading the poem slowly with the type of metrical pattern it has. Let's try to read this poem according to its meter. Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, not in lone splendor hung aloft the night, and watching with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient sleepless Eramite. The moving waters at their pressed like tusk of pure ablutions from earth's human shores, or gazing on the new soft fallen musk of snow upon the mountains and the moors. No, yet still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to fill forever its soft fall and swell, awake forever in sweat and rest, still, still to hear her tender taken breath, and so live ever or else swoon to death. I hope I was able to read out the poem as its meter goes. I hope you have understood the poem. If you have any problems regarding this poem, you can write your comments in the comment box. I'll try to answer them. Thank you very much for watching this video.